The beacon was humanity's pride, a shining colony on the edge of known space. Nestled on the verdant world of Nova Terra, it stood as a testament to human ingenuity and determination. For decades, the colonists had toiled, transforming the alien landscape into a thriving outpost of civilization. Dr. Elena Reyes stood on the observation deck of the colony's central spire, her dark eyes scanning the horizon. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of lavender and gold, its light glinting off the sleek buildings and lush agricultural domes that dotted the landscape. It was beautiful, peaceful, and entirely deceptive. Status report. Elena barked into her comm unit, her voice tight with tension. Long-range sensors are still dark, Doctor, came the reply from the colony's command center. Whatever knocked out our satellite network is still active. We're flying blind out here. Elena's jaw clenched. For the past week, the colony had been plagued by mysterious technical failures and unexplained phenomena. Equipment malfunctions, communication blackouts, even strange lights in the night sky. The colonists were growing restless, their fear palpable. As if in response to her thoughts, a low rumble shook the building. Elena steadied herself against the railing, her heart racing. What was that? She demanded. Before anyone could respond, the sky erupted in fire. Massive shapes tore through the atmosphere, their hulls glowing red-hot from the friction of entry. As Elena watched in horror, the alien ships, for there was no doubt now that they were under attack, opened fire on the defenseless colony. Emerald beams of energy lanced downward, slicing through buildings and shattering domes. The peaceful evening exploded into chaos, the air filled with the screams of the dying and the thunderous roar of collapsing structures. Evacuate. Elena shouted into her comm, even as she sprinted for the emergency stairwell. Get everyone to the shelters. This is not a drill. She burst out onto the street, immediately assaulted by the acrid smell of smoke and the heat of nearby fires. Colonists ran in every direction, panic overriding any semblance of order. Elena grabbed the arm of a passing woman, steadying her. The shelters, she said firmly, pointing towards the distant hills where the colony's emergency bunkers were located. Get there as fast as you can. Help others if you're able, but don't stop. The woman nodded, terror in her eyes, and ran on. Elena turned, ready to guide more people to safety, when a sight stopped her cold. A group of children huddled in the doorway of a burning building, clearly too frightened to move. And descending from the sky on pillars of shimmering light were the invaders themselves. They were tall, easily 7 feet in height, with bodies that seemed to be a hybrid of flesh and machine. Segmented armor covered their torsos, while their limbs were a network of pistons and servos. But it was their faces that chilled Elena to her core, featureless metal masks, devoid of any emotion or mercy. One of the aliens raised its arm, a weapon forming from its very flesh. It took aim at the children. No, Elena screamed, but her voice was lost in the cacophony of destruction. A blur of motion caught her eye. From the group of children, a young girl, no more than 12 years old, broke away. In her hand was clutched a jagged piece of metal, likely debris from one of the shattered buildings. With a cry of defiance that cut through the chaos, she hurled herself at the alien. The makeshift weapon sparked harmlessly off the invader's armor, but the action startled it. Its shot went wide, giving the other children precious seconds to flee. The alien turned its attention to the girl, who stood her ground, small fists clenched in determination. Elena's heart swelled with a mixture of pride and anguish. She knew she would never reach them in time, knew that in seconds the brave child would be. A blinding flash of light engulfed the girl and the alien. When it faded, there was nothing left but a scorched crater. Mira. A woman's agonized scream tore through the air. Elena turned to see a colonist she recognized. Dr. Samira Patel, one of the colony's lead geneticists. Samira fell to her knees, her face a mask of grief and disbelief. In that moment, something changed. The fear that had gripped the colonists began to transmute into something else, a cold, hard anger. Elena saw it in the set of their jaws, the steel in their eyes. They began to organize, to fight back with whatever improvised weapons they could find. But it was too little, too late. The alien force was overwhelming, their technology far beyond anything the colony could muster. Within hours, the beacon, humanity's proudest achievement beyond Earth, was reduced to smoldering ruins. Elena found herself in one of the emergency bunkers, surrounded by shell-shocked survivors. The sharp tang of antiseptic mixed with the metallic scent of blood as medics tended to the wounded. In one corner, a group huddled around a makeshift communications array, desperately trying to reach Earth. "It's no use," one of the technicians said, his voice hollow with defeat. "Long-range comms are completely jammed. We can't get a signal out." "Keep trying," Elena ordered, though she knew it was futile. She turned away, her gaze falling on Samira Patil. The grieving mother sat alone, her eyes vacant, lost in a pain Elena could scarcely imagine. Elena approached her slowly, kneeling beside her. "Samira," she said softly, "I'm so sorry about Mira. What she did, she saved those other children. She was incredibly brave." Samira's eyes focused, meeting Elena's. "She was," she whispered. "My little girl. She always wanted to be a hero." A sob racked her body. "Why? Why did they do this? We never harmed anyone." Elena had no answer. The attack had been sudden, brutal, and seemingly unprovoked. As a scientist, she had always believed in the possibility of alien life, had even hoped for peaceful contact. But this was beyond her worst nightmares. A commotion near the bunker's entrance drew her attention. A group of colonists were carrying in a wounded alien, one of the invaders, its armored body sparking and leaking a phosphorescent fluid. "We managed to bring one down," one of the colonists explained, his voice a mixture of pride and disgust. "Thought you might want to examine it, Dr. Reyes. Maybe figure out what the hell these things are." Elena nodded, pushing aside her revulsion. This was their chance to understand their enemy, to gather information that might save lives. As she approached the alien, its mask turned towards her. For a moment, she thought she saw a flicker of something in its featureless face. Fear, perhaps, or recognition. Then it spoke, its voice a harsh, mechanical rasp. "You should not be here," it said in halting English. "This world is not for you." "This is our home," Elena replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "We've lived here for generations. We've harmed no one." The alien's body convulsed, more fluid leaking from its wounds. "Irrelevant," it grated. "The makers have decided. You will be cleansed." With those ominous words, the light faded from its mask. The alien was dead, leaving behind more questions than answers. Elena stood, her mind racing. The makers cleansed? What did it all mean? She looked around the bunker, at the faces of the survivors, scared, angry, determined. They had lost so much, but they were still here, still fighting. "We need to warn Earth," she said, her voice carrying across the crowded space. "Whatever this is, whoever these makers are, this is just the beginning. We have to prepare." As murmurs of agreement spread through the bunker, Elena's gaze was drawn to a small, makeshift shrine in one corner. Someone had placed a photo there, a school picture of a smiling girl with bright eyes and unruly curls. Mira Patel, the young hero whose sacrifice had saved so many. Elena's resolve hardened. They would survive. They would rebuild. And they would make sure that Mira's bravery was not in vain. The galaxy had changed forever, and humanity would have to change with it. Little did they know, on distant Earth, the response to this tragedy was already taking shape, a response that would shake the very foundations of the cosmos. Earth's response. The United Earth Council chamber was in uproar. Representatives from every nation shouted over one another, their faces contorted with a mixture of fear, anger, and disbelief. At the center of the storm stood Admiral Helena Vance, her weathered face impassive as she waited for the chaos to subside. Order. The booming voice of Council President Adebayo cut through the din. We will have order, or I will clear this chamber. As the noise died down, Adebayo turned to Admiral Vance. Admiral, please continue your report. Vance nodded, her steely gray eyes sweeping the room. As I was saying, the attack on the Beacon colony was swift and brutal. Based on the data we've managed to recover, we estimate casualties at over 80% of the colony's population. A collective gasp rippled through the chamber. Vance continued, her voice steady, but tinged with barely contained fury. However, thanks to the bravery of the colonists, particularly young Mira Patel, we've gained crucial intelligence about our enemy. She tapped a control, and a holographic image flickered to life above the council table. It showed one of the alien invaders, its biomechanical body frozen in mid-stride. We're calling them the Axiom, Vance explained. They appear to be a cybernetic race, far more advanced than anything we've encountered before. And according to the last transmissions from the Beacon, they consider us a contamination to be cleansed. The chamber erupted again, but this time it was President Adebayo who spoke over the commotion. And what is your recommendation, Admiral? Vance's lips thinned into a grim line. We fight back, with everything we have. Everything we have. A new voice cut in, smooth and cultured. Emmanuel Laurent, the European Union representative, stood up. Admiral, with all due respect, our current military capabilities are nowhere near sufficient to wage an interstellar war. A small, fierce smile played at the corners of Vance's mouth. That, Counselor Laurent, is where you're wrong. She tapped her control again, and the hologram changed. Now it showed a massive fleet of ships, sleek and deadly, unlike anything Earth had publicly acknowledged possessing. Ladies and gentlemen, Vance said, her voice ringing with pride, I give you the Nemesis fleet. The chamber fell silent, all eyes fixed on the holographic armée. Vance continued, for the past 2 decades, Earth's nations have been secretly collaborating on a defense initiative like no other. The Nemesis fleet represents the pinnacle of human military technology, ships capable of faster-than-light travel, energy weapons that can pierce any known defenses, and artificial intelligence systems that can outthink any opponent. This is impossible, Laurent sputtered. How was this hidden from the Council? Because, Counselor, President Adebayo said quietly, some secrets are too important to be shared, even among friends. He turned to Vance. I assume the fleet is ready for deployment. Vance nodded. We can launch within 48 hours. Our first priority will be to secure our remaining off-world colonies, then to take the fight directly to the Axiom. Now wait just a moment. The Chinese representative, Li Wang, stood up. We cannot simply rush into a war without attempting diplomacy. These aliens, these Axiom, they must have reasons for their actions. We should try to communicate, to understand. Understand. The interruption came from an unexpected source. Dr. Samira Patel, mother of the young hero Mira, had been invited to address the council. Now she stood, her eyes blazing with a fire that silenced even the most vocal opponents. What is there to understand about genocide? About the murder of children? My daughter, my Mira, she died protecting others from these monsters. And you want to talk to them? Samira's voice broke, but she pressed on. I've seen what they can do. I've heard their words. They consider us a contamination, a disease to be wiped out. There can be no diplomacy with those who deny your very right to exist. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Even those who had argued for caution looked shaken by Samira's words. President Adebayo cleared his throat. Thank you, Dr. Patel. Your daughter's bravery will not be forgotten. He turned back to the council at large. We face a threat unlike any in human history. The choice before us is clear. We can try to reason with an enemy that has already shown its hand, or we can rise to defend ourselves and all we hold dear. He paused, his gaze sweeping the room. "I move that we authorize the immediate deployment of the Nemesis fleet, with Admiral Vance in command. All in favor." The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. As the council members raised their hands, Vance felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. This was it, the moment humanity stepped onto the galactic stage, not as explorers or colonists, but as warriors. As the session adjourned, Vance found herself face to face with Samira Patil. The grieving mother's eyes were red-rimmed but determined. "Admiral," Samira said, her voice low and intense, "promise me something." Vance nodded, waiting. "Make them pay." "For Mira. For all of them." Vance placed a hand on Samira's shoulder, her grip firm and reassuring. "We will, Dr. Patil. I swear it." As Samira walked away, Vance felt a presence at her side. It was President Adebayo, his usual commanding aura softened by concern. "Are you sure about this, Helena?" he asked quietly. "Once we cross this line, there's no going back. We'll be committing our species to a war on a scale we've never seen before." Vance's jaw set in determination. "Mr. President, that line was crossed the moment the Axiom attacked the beacon. We didn't choose this war, but by God, we're going to finish it." Adebayo nodded slowly. "Then may whatever higher power exists have mercy on us all." He straightened, once again the leader of a united Earth. "You have 48 hours, Admiral. Make them count." As Vance strode out of the council chamber, her mind was already racing with preparations. The Nemesis fleet had been a closely guarded secret for years, a trump card held in reserve against just such a threat. Now it would be put to the ultimate test. She tapped her comm unit. "This is Admiral Vance. Initiate Operation Firestorm. I want every ship, every weapon, every soldier ready for launch in 36 hours." As acknowledgments flooded in, Vance allowed herself a moment of grim satisfaction. The Axiom had awoken a sleeping giant, and all the galaxy would soon feel its wrath. In orbit high above Earth, hidden from the prying eyes of conventional sensors, the ships of the Nemesis fleet stirred to life. Massive engines hummed with barely contained power, while weapons systems capable of shattering planets came online. Humanity had always looked to the stars with hope and wonder. Now, for the first time, they looked with a fierce, terrible resolve. The Axiom had sought to cleanse the galaxy of human life. Instead, they had sparked a firestorm that would reshape the very fabric of cosmic civilization. As the fleet prepared for war, on countless screens across Earth and her colonies, the face of young Mira Patil looked out, a symbol of innocence lost, and of the price of freedom. Her sacrifice had become the rallying cry for a species pushed to the brink. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, waiting for the storm that was to come. The first strike. The void of space erupted in a dazzling display of light as the Nemesis fleet dropped out of hyperspace. At the helm of the flagship, the UES Vengeance, Admiral Helena Vance surveyed the tactical display with steely determination. Before them lay the Axiom staging world of Threshold, a massive gas giant ringed by orbital platforms teeming with enemy ships. "Status report," Vance barked, her eyes never leaving the holographic representation of the battlefield. "All ships accounted for, Admiral." Her XO, Commander Ravi Sharma, replied crisply. "Weapon systems are hot, and stealth fields are holding. The Axiom don't seem to have detected our arrival." Vance allowed herself a grim smile. The element of surprise was theirs, at least for now. "Very well. Initiate Operation Thunderbolt." Across the fleet, crews sprang into action. The first wave of ships, sleek corvettes designed for speed and maneuverability, surged forward. As they approached the outermost Axiom platforms, they launched a barrage of quantum torpedoes, a weapon the enemy had never encountered before. The results were devastating. Axiom shields, designed to repel conventional energy weapons, proved useless against the torpedo's exotic payload. Entire, Sections of the orbital platforms simply ceased to exist, converted to energy in microseconds. Multiple confirmed hits, Sharma reported, a note of awe in his voice. Axiom defensive grid is down by 30% and falling. But the enemy was quick to respond. Swarms of Axiom fighters poured from launch bays, their biomechanical forms twisting in impossible patterns as they engaged the human forces. Energy beams lanced back and forth across the battlefield, painting the gas giant's swirling atmosphere with streaks of light. "Launch Valkyrie squadrons," Vance ordered. "Let's show these bastards what real flying looks like." From the hangar bays of the larger ships, Earth's most advanced fighter craft joined the fray. Unlike their Axiom counterparts, the Valkyries were piloted by humans, the best and brightest pilots humanity had to offer, their skills augmented by cutting-edge AI assistance. The dogfight that ensued was like nothing ever seen in the history of warfare. Valkyries and Axiom fighters danced a deadly ballet among the debris of shattered platforms and disabled ships. The human pilots' intuition and creativity, combined with their eyes' lightning-fast calculations, proved a match for the Axiom's alien reflexes and unfathomable tactics. As the battle raged, Vance turned her attention to the next phase of the operation. "Bring the Archimedes into position," she commanded. The UES Archimedes, crown jewel of Earth's scientific fleet, maneuvered into place behind the protective screen of warships. Its mission was not destruction, but discovery. Banks of sensors and analysis equipment probed the Axiom defenses, gathering crucial data on their technology and tactics. "Admiral," a voice cut in. "Dr. Yuki Tanaka, lead scientist aboard the Archimedes. We're detecting some kind of subspace anomaly at the heart of the Axiom formation. It doesn't match any known phenomenon." Vance frowned. "Can you get me a visual?" The tactical display zoomed in, revealing a swirling vortex of energy at the center of the Axiom fleet. Ships seemed to be emerging from it, reinforcements from some distant source. "It appears to be a stable wormhole," Dr. Tanaka explained, her voice tight with excitement and fear. "The Axiom aren't just fighting us here, they're drawing forces from across the galaxy." The implications were staggering. If the Axiom had this kind of faster-than-light capability, nowhere in the galaxy was truly safe from their reach. "New priority target," Vance declared. "I want that wormhole shut down. All ships, concentrate fire on the generators surrounding the anomaly." The battle shifted, Earth's forces pressing their advantage with renewed urgency. The Axiom, realizing the humans' intent, redoubled their defense of the wormhole. The space around the swirling vortex became a kill zone, where ships on both sides were reduced to atoms in seconds. Aboard the Vengeance, klaxons blared as enemy fire found its mark. "Port shields down to 40%, Sharma reported, his calm demeanor betrayed by a bead of sweat on his brow. Vance gripped the arms of her command chair. "Divert power from non-essential systems. We hold this line, no matter the cost." As if in answer to her determination, a massive Axiom dreadnought emerged from the wormhole. It dwarfed even the largest human ships, its hull bristling with weapon emplacements. "Oh my God," someone whispered on the bridge. But Vance saw not a threat, but an opportunity. "All ships, new vector," she ordered. "Use the dreadnought as cover to approach the wormhole." It was a daring move. Earth's ships darted around the lumbering Axiom vessel, using its bulk as a shield against fire from its own allies. In the confusion, a wing of Valkyries slipped through, streaking towards the wormhole's generators. "Valkyrie squad, you have weapons free," Vance's voice rang through the comm. "Take that thing down." The fighters unleashed their payloads, advanced missiles specifically designed to disrupt spatial anomalies. They struck home just as the Axiom realized the danger. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a silent flash that lit up half the system, the wormhole collapsed. The backlash caught the Axiom dreadnought, tearing it apart from within. A ragged cheer went up across the human fleet. But Vance knew the battle was far from over. "All ships push the advantage," she commanded. "Don't let them regroup." What followed was 3 hours of the most intense combat in human history. Slowly but surely, Earth's forces gained the upper hand. Axiom ships, cut off from reinforcement, fell one by one to the superior tactics and technology of the Nemesis fleet. As the last enemy vessel winked out of existence, a stunned silence fell over the battlefield. They had done it. Humanity had won its first major engagement against the Axiom. But the victory had come at a cost. Dozens of Earth ships were little more than floating debris. Hundreds of brave men and women had given their lives to secure this foothold. "Damage report," Vance said softly, feeling the weight of every loss. Sharma consulted his display. "We've lost 30% of our fleet, Admiral. But the Axiom, they've been completely routed in this sector." Vance nodded, allowing herself a moment of grim satisfaction. "Begin recovery operations. I want every piece of Axiom tech we can salvage. And prepare a signal buoy. It's time to let Earth know we've won the day." As the fleet set about its tasks, Vance stared out at the gas giant threshold. Its serene swirls of color belied the carnage that had just unfolded in its orbit. This was only the beginning, she knew. The Axiom would return, in greater numbers, and with greater fury. But humanity had proven itself a force to be reckoned with. They had faced the nightmare that lurked among the stars, and they had not blinked. As the signal buoy winked out, carrying news of the victory back to Earth, Vance allowed herself a small, fierce smile. "Your move," she whispered to the uncaring void, a challenge to the Axiom and whatever forces guided them. The battle for Threshold was over. The war for the galaxy had only just begun. Escalation and alliances. The news of humanity's victory at Threshold spread across the galaxy like wildfire. For the first time, a species had not only stood up to the Axiom, but had decisively defeated them in battle. The repercussions were immediate and far-reaching. In the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Concord, representatives from 100 different species argued vociferously. The Concord, a loose alliance of spacefaring races, had long maintained a policy of non-intervention in Axiom affairs. Now, that policy was being called into question. Ambassador Jorax of the Veldare, a race of towering crystalline beings, addressed the assembly. "For too long, we have cowered in the shadow of the Axiom. These humans have shown us that they can be defeated. I say we extend the hand of friendship to Earth and join them in their fight." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the hall, but not all were convinced. The Kulari delegate, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate mechanical shell, flared with agitation, and risked bringing the full might of the Axiom down upon us. "The humans' victory may be impressive, but it is but one battle. We should not be so quick-toe." The Kulari's words were cut short as the grand doors of the assembly hall burst open. A figure strode in, clad in the uniform of an Earth Fleet admiral. It was Helena Vance, her presence commanding instant attention. "Esteemed members of the Concord," Vance began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber, "I come before you not to ask for your help, but to offer you a choice." She activated a holographic projector, and above the assembly appeared images of the battle at Threshold. The gathered aliens watched in awe as Earth ships danced through the void, matching the Axiom blow for blow. "For too long, the Axiom have been allowed to rampage unchecked through the galaxy," Vance continued. "They call themselves the Cleansers, believing it is their divine right to eradicate any species they deem unworthy. How many of you have lost colonies, lost entire worlds to their madness?" A ripple of uncomfortable murmurs swept the room. Many of the assembled species had indeed suffered at the hands of the Axiom, but few had dared to speak of it openly. "Humanity stands ready to lead the charge against this threat," Vance declared, "but we cannot do it alone. Join us, add your strength to ours, and together we can end the Axiom menace once and for all." As Vance's words hung in the air, the assembly erupted into chaos. Some species pledged their immediate support, while others cautioned restraint. Still, others seemed torn, weighing the risks of action against the cost of continued inaction. Amidst the furor, a new voice cut through the din. And what of the makers? The speaker was Cathal, representative of the enigmatic Noxeri, a species as old as the Concord itself. All eyes turned to the shadowy figure. The axioms speak of makers, Cathal continued, his voice a sibilant whisper that nonetheless carried clearly. Gods who guide their hand. What if this crusade of yours awakens something beyond even the axiom? Vance met the Noxeri's gaze unflinchingly. Then we'll face that threat too. Humanity did not come this far, did not reach for the stars, only to cower before any being that claims godhood. Her words seemed to resonate with many in the assembly. One by one, species began to pledge their support. The Veldari offered their advanced shield technology. The warrior clans of Torga promised legions of their fiercest fighters. Even the Quillari, after much internal debate, agreed to share their vast intelligence networks. But not all were swayed. Several species, fearful of axiom reprisal, declared their neutrality. A few even condemned humanity's actions, claiming that the war would bring ruin to the galaxy. As the Concord session adjourned, Vance found herself approached by Cathal of the Noxeri. The alien's form seemed to shift and waver, as if not entirely present in this reality. "You play a dangerous game, Admiral," Cathal said, his voice carrying an undertone that sent shivers down Vance's spine. "The galaxy is larger and older than you can imagine. There are forces at work beyond your comprehension." Vance stood her ground. "Maybe so, but we'll face those forces on our feet, not on our knees." Cathal was silent for a long moment. Then, to Vance's surprise, he extended a shadowy appendage. "The Noxeri will watch this conflict with great interest, Admiral. You have our conditional support." As Cathal glided away, Vance let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. The support of the ancient Noxeri could tip the scales decisively in humanity's favor. But there was no time to savor the diplomatic victory. Her communicator chimed urgently. "Admiral," came the voice of her XO, Commander Sharma. "We're detecting massive axiom fleet movements. They're mobilizing on a scale we've never seen before." Vance's jaw set in grim determination. "They're finally taking us seriously. Alert all Earth forces and our new allies. This is it. The real war begins now." As she strode out of the Concord chamber, Vance's mind raced with plans and contingencies. The alliance she had forged here was unprecedented, a coalition of species united against a common threat. But would it be enough? Back on Earth, the factories of war churned at fever pitch. New ships were launched daily, each more advanced than the last as human engineers incorporated salvaged axiom tech and gifts from their new allies. In hidden labs, scientists worked tirelessly to unravel the mysteries of axiom biology and technology. Every discovery brought new weapons, new defenses, new hope. But the axiom were not idle. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy of renewed attacks, each more brutal than the last. Entire systems were quarantined, cut off from all communication. The cleansing, it seemed, had entered a new and terrible phase. On a dozen fronts, the Allied fleet engaged axiom forces. Battles raged across the stars, each side trading victories and defeats. The galaxy burned with the fires of a war unlike any in living memory. Through it all, the face of Mira Patel, the young hero of the beacon, remained a constant presence. Her image adorned the halls of the Concord and the bulkheads of warships. For many, she had become a symbol of all they were fighting for: innocence in need of protection, bravery in the face of overwhelming odds. As Admiral Vance prepared to lead the fleet in a daring strike against a key axiom stronghold, she paused before a memorial wall aboard the Vengeance. Among the faces of the fallen was Mira's, her young eyes seeming to stare out with a mixture of hope and accusation. "We won't let you down," Vance whispered, touching the image gently. "Any of you." The klaxons sounded, calling all hands to battle stations. With a last look at the memorial wall, Vance turned and strode towards the bridge. The next chapter of the war was about to be written. and she intended to make sure it was one the Axiom would never forget. As the Vengeance and its escort fleet jumped to hyperspace, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The galaxy trembled on the brink of irrevocable change, and at the heart of it all was humanity, no longer a fledgling species, but the tip of the spear in a war for the very soul of the cosmos. The final confrontation. The war had raged for 3 long years. Countless worlds lay in ruins, entire species teetered on the brink of extinction, and still the Axiom fought on with terrifying tenacity. But slowly, inexorably, the tide had begun to turn. Admiral Helena Vance stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic display of their latest objective, the Axiom homeworld, Terminus. "Status report," she commanded, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 battles. Commander Sharma, his once youthful features now etched with scars both physical and emotional, responded crisply. "The Allied fleet is in position, Admiral. The Veldari shield matrix is operational, and the Torga berserkers are primed for the assault." Vance nodded, her steely gaze fixed on the swirling storms of Terminus. This was it, the culmination of everything they had fought for. Victory here could end the war. Defeat would likely spell doom for all free species in the galaxy. "Open a channel to all ships," Vance ordered. As the comm crackled to life, she took a deep breath. "This is Admiral Vance. Today, we face our greatest challenge. The Axiom have taken much from us, our homes, our loved ones, our peace. But they could not take our spirit, our determination, our humanity." She paused, letting her words sink in. "On this day, we fight not just for Earth, but for every species that has suffered under Axiom oppression. We fight for those we've lost, and for those yet to be born. We fight for a future where our children can look to the stars with wonder, not fear." Across the fleet, crews stood a little straighter, grips tightened on controls, and jaws set with grim determination. "Remember Mira Patel," Vance continued, her voice swelling with emotion. "Remember every innocent life cut short by Axiom cruelty. Today we avenge them. Today we end this war. For Earth, for the Alliance, for the galaxy. Attack." The space around Terminus erupted into chaos as the Allied fleet engaged. Axiom defenses, formidable beyond anything they had yet encountered, lit up the void with searing energy beams and exotic weaponry. But the Allies had surprises of their own. Noxeri phase shifters allowed entire squadrons to slip past Axiom shields undetected. Quilleri data spirits invaded and subverted enemy systems. And at the heart of it all, Earth's nemesis fleet struck with devastating precision. As the battle raged, Dr. Samira Patel worked feverishly aboard the science vessel Archimedes. Years of studying Axiom technology had led to this moment, a weapon that could target the very core of Axiom biology. "Admiral," Samara's voice crackled over the comm, "the severance device is ready. We need to get it to the planet's surface." Vance's mind raced, calculating odds and trajectories. "Understood, Doctor." "Valkyrie Squadron, form up on me. We're going in." In a daring maneuver, Vance led a strike team through the chaos of battle, weaving between capital ships and debris fields. Axiom fighters swarmed around them, but the human pilots, their skills honed by years of war, were more than a match. As they approached the turbulent atmosphere of Terminus, Vance's sensors blared a warning. A massive energy signature was building on the planet's surface. "Admiral," Kithal's ethereal voice cut in, "our seers sense a great awakening. The Makers, they stir." The surface of Terminus began to shift and transform. Mountains rearranged themselves, oceans drained away, and at the heart of it all, something vast and incomprehensible began to rise. "My God," Sharma whispered, "the whole planet. It's alive." The Makers, it seemed, were more than mere myth. The entire Axiom homeworld was transforming into a being of unimaginable power. But Vance's resolve did not waver. "This changes nothing," she declared. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. All ships concentrate fire on the emerging entity. As the Allied fleet redoubled its assault, Vance's strike team made a perilous landing on the writhing surface of Terminus. They fought their way through waves of Axiom defenders, each step bringing them closer to their goal. Finally, they'd reached the central nexus, the point where the severance device could do the most damage. As Samira worked to activate the weapon, Vance and her team held off an endless horde of Axiom warriors. "It's done," Samira shouted over the din of battle. "Activating now." A pulse of energy rippled out from the device, invisible to the naked eye, but devastating to the Axiom on a fundamental level. All across Terminus, the cybernetic invaders began to falter, their connection to their makers suddenly and irrevocably severed. The living planet shuddered, its transformation halting mid-process. For a moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a silent scream felt in the minds of every being in the system, the makers began to die. Terminus itself started to break apart, great fissures opening in its surface. "All ships, retreat to safe distance," Vance ordered as her team raced back to their fighters. "Commence final bombardment." From orbit, the Allied fleet unleashed its full might. Antimatter warheads and gravity lances struck at the planet's core, while Velderi singularity generators tore at the fabric of spacetime itself. In a cataclysm visible across half the galaxy, Terminus, homeworld of the Axiom and avatar of the makers, was obliterated. As the blinding light faded, a stunned silence fell over the Allied fleet. Slowly, realization dawned. They had won. The Axiom threat was ended. The makers destroyed. Cheers erupted across every ship, every world linked to the battle networks. After years of desperate struggle, of sacrifices beyond measure, victory was theirs. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Admiral Vance allowed herself a moment of relief, of joy. But as she looked out at the debris field that had once been Terminus, she felt no triumph, only a profound weariness and a glimmer of unease. They had defeated a god, or something close to it. What would that mean for the galaxy, for the very nature of existence? As if sensing her thoughts, Cathal of the Noxeri appeared at her side, his form shimmering with otherworldly energies. "The galaxy stands at a crossroads. Admiral," he intoned, "you have broken chains that have bound reality for eons. What comes next will shape the fate of all things." Vance nodded slowly. "We'll face it together," she said, her voice carrying a hint of her old determination. "Humanity, the Alliance, we've proven what we can accomplish when we stand united." As the fleet regrouped, tending to their wounded and processing their victory, Vance's gaze was drawn to a small hologram flickering on her command console. It was the image of Mira Patel, the young girl whose sacrifice had started it all. "We did it, Mira," Vance whispered. "We kept our promise." The journey home would be long, the work of rebuilding longer still. But as the Allied Armada set course for Earth, there was a sense of hope that had been absent for too long. They had faced the darkness among the stars, and they had prevailed. The galaxy would never be the same, but perhaps, just perhaps, it could be better. As the ships winked into hyperspace, the last echoes of the battle faded away. The stars shone on, silent witnesses to the end of one era and the dawning of another. Humanity had claimed its place in the cosmos, for better or for worse. And somewhere, in the vast expanse of space and time, young Mira Patel smiled.